Hello, welcome or welcome back to the YarnNYarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela and all the places you can find me should be linked in the description box below this video. Here on the channel you'll find me chatting about my adventures in knitting, spinning, crochet and weaving, all the fibre related things. Today's video is my making wrap up video for January and February 2024. It's been quite a while I think since I've done a wrap up video. I don't think I did one in November or December, so it feels like a little bit odd to be stood here making a video in this format. Of course I've made lots of other videos in between, but yeah, trying to gather some bits together and do a roundup. I'm a little bit out of practice. Yeah, I'll be chatting to you about all of the things that I made in the first couple of months of the year. Usually I do these monthly, but as I mentioned, it's been a while since I have managed to have enough making, I think, to justify doing one, and have also had the time to put a video together. I have some knitting and some spinning to share with you today, and I also received a couple of lovely gifts, so I've got a little acquisition segment to share at the end as well. I think we'll start with knitting, as I have some bits and pieces already in front of me. I had quite a slow end of the year making wise, and throughout January my main focus was the 12 cast-ons projects, which I have already shared lots of videos about. So if you happen to be new to the channel and you want to find out about the 12 cast-ons, it's a annual make-along that I host. There's some playlists on the main channel. But if you ever hear me refer to the 12 cast-ons, that's what I'm talking about. In the main, my January making was to start all of those new projects. But in between, I did work on a couple of small things, and that carried on through February as well. So I actually, in January and February, managed to finish 4 projects, 3 pairs of socks and 1 cowl. And I also have 1 work in progress to share with you as well. So first off, I've got 2 finished objects which have been gifted. They've been given to their new owners, and I don't physically have them anymore to share with you. First off, I made a cowl from some hand spun yarn for one of my lovely friends, Jeanette. I go away every February with a lovely group of knitting friends, and we do a little sort of secret swap where we knit for someone else in the group. So this time it was my turn to knit for Jeanette, and I took a skein of hand spun rambouillet that I spun up during Tour de Fleece last year, and I knit a really simple cowl just to show off the yarn. It was a fractally spun yarn. I've got a couple of pictures. They're not the best because I actually ended up finishing my cowl on the morning before I went away for the weekend. So yeah, I just didn't have time to really do anything other than snap a couple of quick pictures. So I shall pop those up on the screen along with pictures of yarn and stuff if I can find them. I used the sock head cowl recipe, which is a free pattern. You'll be able to find that over on Ravelry if you're a Ravelry user. I think it's by Kelly McClure, but I might be remembering that incorrectly. But all of the details will be linked below the video if you're interested in any of the projects that I chat about. So that has now gone off to its new home, and it was just a really joyful project, just knitting away for the most part, just round and round in some lovely hand spun yarn. I remembered not really enjoying the spinning of that yarn last Tour de Fleece. There was something about the feel of the fibre that I didn't 100% enjoy, but the colours are beautiful. The fibre was originally from Hilltop Cloud, and the knitting of it was lovely. So yeah, that kind of redeemed that yarn for me a little bit. Yeah, although the spinning wasn't great, the knitting was just lovely. So that was one of the finished objects that I have gifted. The other is a pair of socks, and I think I might have taken a wee quick video of the finished pair of socks. If not, again, I'll have a photograph or two which I can pop up on the screen and share. I started a new job back in October, so it's not that new anymore. I've almost been there for 6 months, but I'm working outside the house in an office job for 4 days a week. And one of my colleagues asked if I would consider making her a pair of knitted socks, and I'm always knitting socks and it's always a good portable project to have on the go. And at this point in my knitting adventures, I have so many pairs of socks that I own for myself. It's kind of always a secret pleasure or not so secret pleasure to find other folks to knit socks for. It's just an excuse to make more socks and have that portable project on the needles. So I used a skein of opal yarn. I just did a really basic 3x1 rib sock for the entire sock. So those have now also been gifted. They fit perfectly, and my colleague is so obsessed with those socks she's asked me to knit another pair for her. So I shall be casting on, or actually I've just cast on a new pair of socks for the same colleague. And yeah, she's a really lovely lady, so I don't mind, and she's not in any rush for the socks. They just come as and when they get finished. So yeah, those are quite a nice project to have sort of rumbling along in the background when I need a bit of simple knitting or some portable knitting. And then I have 2 more pairs of socks, so it's a bit socktastic. Obviously I concentrated on a lot of small projects. In January I finished a pair of socks for myself from some beautiful West Yorkshire Spinners yarn from their signature 4-ply, the Birds range, the Country Birds selection. And this is the Woodpecker colourway, the green Woodpecker colourway. And I did contrast heels, toes and cuffs in one of the West Yorkshire Spinners solids colourway. This one might be the cardamom colourway, but I can't quite remember, to be honest. But yeah, just a really simple vanilla sock. I do have a pair. I will prove it to you. Here is the other sock. And so I finished this was actually my first finished project of 2024. I did a lot of the knitting in December. So yeah, it was nice to get those off of the needles. And then finally, for my finished objects, I have a long-standing work in progress off the needles, and it is another pair of socks. But these socks were on the needles since when did I work? Was it 2020? I think they've been on the needles for practically 4 years. I did a little video over on the Yarn and Yarns Patreon for the community over there in February, where I was deciding whether to finally finish these socks or frog them, and in the end I decided to finish them. And they're a pair of socks that I designed myself, and here is one of the socks on the blocker. It's looking a bit baggy because I have worn these socks, and yes, I'm showing my dirty socks off again on my YouTube channel. Every time I wear socks I say I'm never going to show my dirty socks again, and here we are again, because sometimes you just can't resist wearing your finished object. So these started out as a request from my sister, my little sister. She is obsessed with the animals, giraffes, and she asked me if I could make her a pair of giraffe inspired socks. So I just self-designed this kind of giraffe print and knit a sock for her, sent it off to her to try on, and she was going to send the sock back to me so I could knit the second sock. She lives quite far away from me, so it's not a case of getting her around to try on the sock for fit. And so yeah, I sent off this sock, and then for one reason and another it never came back to me. So I'd already started knitting the second sock. When the first sock didn't come back to me, I thought, oh well, I'll knit a third sock and I'll keep them for myself. And all sorts of shenanigans ensued. I lost a bit of enthusiasm for the project, and in February I decided it was high time to decide whether to finish or frog these socks, and in the end I decided to finish them. So here we go. I do have a pair. I'm really happy to have those finished after 4 years of being on the needles. So yeah, I'm glad I didn't give up on them. They're slightly mismatched in that one sock I think is a 68 stitch sock, one sock's a 72 stitch sock. Don't ask. I went into all of the gory details over on the Patreon video, but it doesn't really matter. They're now finished, they fit, I've worn them, I really enjoy them, and yeah, it's nice to have one of those very old whips off of the needles. I used 2 different yarns obviously for this. The white colour, the background, is Cascade 220 fingering weight, and the rusty sort of orangey brown colour is also a West Yorkshire Spinners colour, and I think it's the Nutmeg colourway. So yeah, those are all my finished objects knitting wise for January and February. 3 pairs of socks and 1 cowl. After successfully finishing my giraffe socks, I was inspired to pick up another one of my older whips. Obviously throughout January I'd worked on lots of new things, so it felt kind of nice to concentrate on a few of my older works in progress after that. And I cast on last year for my birthday a sweater, and I'm so close to having this finished. I literally have about 12 rows I think left, but there could be some rejigging to do on this sweater depending on how it turns out. So let me just grab the sweater in question and I can talk you through it. The pattern is called the Vina Hop, I believe. I shall again put links to all of the projects below, and I was very kindly gifted this pattern for, I think it was just before my birthday last year in August, by the lovely Dagmar. And it's one of those genius patterns whereby you can knit it in any weight of yarn and any needle size. You just need to do a little swatch, figure out your gauge, and then plug in some numbers. I had, at the time, recently finished knitting my hand spun litmus cowl, and I had lots of yarn left, lots of hand spun yarn left from my litmus cowl, and I decided to make a stripy version of the Vina Hop. And this is really not going to be that easy to share with you on the screen, but as you can see I'm making myself a stripy jumper. My contrast yarn, the hand spun, I've paired with some beautiful yarn from Cartrev Yarns, which is a lovely Welsh produced yarn, and I happen to have 2 skeins of this beautiful green colour in my stash already that I bought for a shawl, I believe. I can't even remember what shawl pattern. I just know that I bought 2 skeins for a large shawl and then never cast it on. So I decided to use those 2 skeins and pair them with my hand spun. And in the end, I actually purchased a 3rd skein because I wasn't quite sure if I'd have enough yarn. And that has really stood me in good stead, because I'm actually turning this sweater into more like a tunic top to use up all of my hand spun yarn, I think. So this is where the sort of indecision comes in. So if I hold this up here, I don't know if you can see, but I've got a little bit of a lifeline in here, because after this green stripe I really had hit the length that I would like, or usually like, for a sort of standard jumper size for me. But I still had 2 of my contrast hand spun skeins left, and I felt like after all of this knitting it was kind of a shame not to use all of the hand spun. So I decided to experiment a little bit and carry on until my hand spun got used up, and see if I could make a longer length, sort of longer line tunic top out of this. So I have just finished the last red stripe, which is the last of my hand spun yarn. I'm going to be putting in my ribbing now, and then after that I shall obviously cast off, block it, try it on, see how I like the length, and if it works out great. If not, then worst case scenario I'm going to rip back to that lifeline and just make it to my standard jumper length. Because I've made this a little bit longer, I did decide, I don't know how obvious it will be, I think it is fairly obvious on the camera, but I did decide to slightly increase to accommodate my hips as I was making this a little bit longer. So in every green stripe from I think about here, I have decided to increase 4 stitches. So every sort of couple of inches I increase the rows by 4 stitches. So yeah, hopefully that will accommodate my hips okay and make for a reasonable shape for this tunic top. I'm hoping it's going to be long enough and it doesn't just look like a completely baggy oversized jumper. I don't know, we shall see. Obviously I've made it short sleeves, so yeah, we're almost there. I had hoped to get this finished, but I wasn't quite able to do it. There's lots of stitches in my rows at the bottom of this top, and it's 4-ply yarn, so they take quite a long time. But I have about 10 rows of ribbing left to go, I think. And then if I can show you here, it has quite an interesting detail where you do your ribbing and then you do a couple of purl rows at the end, so you get quite a nice kind of finish. on the end of that ribbing. So I've got a couple of purl rows to do as well, and then we shall see where we're at. So when I started this sweater back in February, I believe I was somewhere around this blue stripe. So I have done a lot of knitting on this. If this works out and I like the fit, I think I'm going to love this garment. So lots of beautiful handspun paired with that beautiful cart trev, and I'll see if I can slowly roll this up the screen so you can see all of the different colours. So a whole lot of rainbow stripes going on in my version of the Vina Hop. Before I get on to spinning, this year I am, well, for the last couple of years, I've really tried to not bring too much yarn and fibre into the house. I'm trying to reduce my stash a little bit. I have bought lots of things over the last 10, 15 years or so since I've seriously got back into knitting, and it's starting to outgrow the space that I have to keep it in, really. So I've started a few little de-stash things. I've sold some yarn, I've given some yarn away, but I felt like this year I really wanted to try and keep track of what's coming in and out of the house. So I'm keeping a running total of my yarn and my fibre in terms of like a plus or minus scale. I haven't logged and weighed every single skein that I own. I'm just measuring what comes into the house and what goes out of the house. Now, unfortunately, I started off the year, I mean, not unfortunately, but at the beginning of the year, one of my 12 cast-ons I bought new yarn for. So my total is not looking particularly great at the moment, given that I bought in nearly 800 grams for a sweater, and I've really only finished a few small projects so far. So, but I thought to keep myself accountable at the end of each month when I do my monthly wrap-ups, I'll just give you my running total. So at the moment, my yarn in and out, I'm actually on the plus scale. Eventually by the end of the year I'd like to be on the minus side of the scale, but at the moment I have added 750 grams to my yarn stash. And we're not going to talk about the fact that I went to the East Anglia Yarn Festival last weekend. That will be for me to confess in my March making wrap up. So that's it for the February stash total, and also for the February knitting. So with the knitting wrapped up, it's time to chat about my spinning for February and January and February. And I did actually manage to finish off a couple of older spins and start and finish a few spins as well, which I'm really pleased with. Andrea Mowry had been hosting 100 days of spindle spinning make along, which started back in December, and that inspired me to work on a lot of these projects. I spindle spin a lot anyway, but I decided to focus mainly on spindle spinning. So the first thing I think I finished is this beautiful yarn, which I haven't yet measured, so I can't give you the stats on it, but I spun this on my Turkish spindles, and the fibre was from Fellview Fibres, some beautiful rolags that were a gift from one of our community members, Tori. And honestly, this fibre was just such a joy to spin. I don't have the card handy because, as I say, I haven't done the measurements yet. I think the card is still downstairs, but it's definitely got some cashmere and merino in this blend. I think there's some silk, and I think there might be one other fibre as well. But it's so beautifully soft, and I absolutely adore this finished yarn. I almost cast this on as one of our 12 cast on projects this year. I'm thinking about knitting a storm shawl by Johi Locatelli, which is a pattern I've knit before, and my other storm shawl is also hand spun, and I love wearing that shawl so much that, yeah, I thought I might make another one from this beautiful skein. Spindle spun the singles on my Turkish spindles, and then I plied the yarn on my Ashford e-spinner. The second long-term project, so counting that first skein as a long-term project, I started that again for my birthday in August last year, and I just slowly spun away as and when I had time, just enjoying those beautiful rolags. I also had one other long-term spin on the go, and quite some time ago now, probably several years or more, I happened to accidentally become the owner of a sample pack from Spin Jones Fibre. Last Tour de Fleece, I think, last year's Tour de Fleece back in July, I started spinning through a lot of the samples in that sample pack on my support spindles. So I had a big basket full of spindle spun singles that again mainly needed to be plied. So I have so many of these. I don't think I can share them with you. I haven't measured them all, but the ones I have measured, they're sort of 10 grams each, roughly between 40 and 50 meters each mini skein. So I'm not sure how to share this with you. Maybe I will, after I finish recording this chatty bit, maybe I'll take a shot of them laid out on the floor and I can just show them all to you that way, because otherwise I'm just holding up bunches of mini skeins and you can't really see the sort of colours too well. So yeah, I think I'll spread them all out. I think there's like 20 or more of these mini skeins, so a good amount of spinning. This was many hours of fun on my support spindles, and again, after I spun the singles on my support spindles, I plied these on my Ashford e-spinner. I'm trying to gather them all together so I can at least try and hold them all up to you. As you can see, I've measured some, but not all of them yet. Look at those beautiful, beautiful colours. So it was really nice to get those long-term spins finished. I do not know what I'm going to do with all those mini skeins yet, but I will come up with a project at some point in the future. And then I worked my way through a couple of braids of fibre from my stash, again on my spindles for the 100 days of spindle spinning project. The first one was a lovely braid from Velvet Sixpence that was gifted to me by my friend Jeanette, and this is a mix of Corriedale, Merino, Shetland and Mulberry silk. Again, I spun it entirely on my support spindles and then I plied it on my e-spinner. It's 350 meters and 109 grams, so a sport-ish weight yarn. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful colour. Did I say the name of the fibre was bronze, or the colourway of the fibre was bronze, which I think is perfect. It's got that greeny patina that bronze gets as it ages. The light is not the best today for showing off these colours, so I do apologise, but it is a very dull day in the beginning of March here in South Wales. What can we do? What can we do? Finally, for spinning, I also, on my sport spindles, spun 2 skeins of yarn from the same braid of fibre, and this is my finished yarn. Look at that neon gloriousness. So this was a braid of fibre that I purchased at Wonderwall 2 years ago, I believe. It was dyed by the lovely Almas, Witchcrafty Lady, and it's a combination of Polworth and nylon, so this will be perfect for socks. When I split down the braid, I could see that it had been mirror dyed. So there are sort of 3 main colours in there. I've got the sort of neon highlighter yellow, the highlighter pink, and then there was a bit of white in the middle with speckles of all of those colours and some blue. So it went from, say, pink in the middle to the white to the highlighter yellow or something like that. So I decided to split my braid roughly down the middle and try to spin 2 skeins of reasonably identical. I mean, they're not going to be identical, obviously the dye spreads in slightly different ways, but I wanted the colours to be in the same kind of colour order. And hopefully at some point soon I shall cast on a lovely pair of socks from this. So one of my skeins is 50 grams, the other is 57 grams. The 57 gram skein has got 190 meters in it, and the 50 gram skein's got 180 meters in it. And I chain plied this to keep the colours in order. So this one is a 3-ply yarn. I forgot to mention this bronze one is a 2-ply yarn, as were the mini skeins and the Fellview fibres. In terms of my fibre stash in out total, I am slightly in the minus column. Although I finished quite a lot of spinning, I was very kindly gifted some fibre in February, which I will share with you in a minute in my acquisitions segment. and that's tipped the balance a little bit. But I'm still in the minus column, so that's not bad. So I am down in my stash 70 grams of fibre. So that's not a huge amount, but hopefully we will continue to work our way through some fibre this year and continue that good start and keep working towards a minus total at the end of the year. I'm hoping at the end of each month I will remember to do these running fibre and yarn totals with you. If I forget, give me a nudge. That is all of the making chat finished for this video. So I've got a couple of acquisitions to share with you. I already mentioned that I went away with my lovely group of knitting friends in February, and one of my lovely friends, Ruth, reached out to me after I had cast on my Elton sweater, my 12 cast-ons. And if you watch that video and you remember that project, you might remember that I'm using some lovely yarn from Colourful Creativity Caroline in the Coral Reef colourway, and I've got 2 skeins of that yarn. And on that video I was chatting about whether I might need to bring in another colour to finish that sweater off, because 2 skeins of the yarn was not going to be quite enough to finish that sweater in my size. But then Ruth reached out to me and said that she had this sock set in that same Coral Reef colourway that was just sitting in her stash, and she said that she would happily pass it on to me so that I can extend the amount of knitting that I can do on my Elton sweater. So I was really happy to receive that, because it means my yarn's going to go further. I can make that sweater a nice size, hopefully. I may still have to bring in a solid colour to finish the bottom of that sweater as I planned, but it'll be just really nice to not have to worry quite so much about whether I'm going to be playing yarn chicken with that sweater. So thank you so much to Ruth for thinking of me and for donating this to my Elton sweater project. For fibre, I was contacted by one of our lovely community members, Sharon, who reached out to me and asked whether she could gift me a fibre advent that she had purchased I think a couple of years ago, and she hadn't got around to spinning, and she knows, having watched my channel, how much I enjoy spinning up little fibre samples, and you've seen that a little bit today with the mini skeins that I'm knitting into my Vina Hop, and also all of those mini skeins that I spun in my Spin Jones sample box. I love the satisfaction of spinning through those small quantities of fibre, getting that kind of finished object feeling. Even though I might be working towards a bigger overall project, just finishing those mini skeins is just a real joy. You get lots of satisfaction from that. I have this amazing bag full of fibre. This was a fibre advent from Wonderful Wool. Some of these packages have already been opened. So this particular one, Superwash Merino and Nylon. I'm not sure if they're all different or all the same. I haven't really explored all of the packages yet. Perhaps I'll open another one. I think they're all different. Yeah, so this one is Radna. So it seems like there's going to be lots of different fibres and lots of different samples for me to spin up. I haven't, as I say, gone through this package in its entirety to know exactly what I'm getting. Those two are both in the pinky purple range, so maybe this whole entire calendar, those colours. Purple bags, maybe, I'm not sure. It will certainly be fun finding out. I think I'm going to save this as a Tour de Fleece spin for July this year, when the Tour de France and the Tour de Fleece is happening. I think that'll be really fun to have one of these packages to open every day and spin up. Hopefully I can resist the urge to spin those, because I'm so excited about that, and just so grateful that Sharon thought of me and gifted that to me. What an amazing gift. I mean, I've received so many wonderful gifts over the years, thanks to the lovely community that has grown up around this channel, and yeah, I'm grateful for each and every one. There's no expectation here for me receiving things, but it's always a real joy when someone reaches out and offers to gift me something, because yeah, it's nice to be thought of, isn't it? And yeah, what else can I say? Let's not tear up and get emotional. As well as the fibre in the advent calendar, Sharon was super sneaky and also added in some extras. Now these are all different combed top fibres from Fibre Hut. So I've got those 3. Whoops. I don't think I'm going to be able to hold these up all together. And these 4. Oh, I just randomly picked those out, but look how nicely those 4 go together. So yeah, lots of different fibres in there again. There's some Masham. Some of these are mixed fibres. There's some Shetland, some Merino. They're all just so beautiful. So I shall look forward to spinning those up soon. I think these ones from the Fibre Hut, I will probably add them to my fibre cart. I've got a little cart of fibres that have been gifted to me, or things that I bought recently that I'd like to spin through when I need a random spin. So I think I'm going to add these bumps of fibre from Sharon to the fibre cart, and they will get spun up when the time is right. So that was my little acquisition segment for January and February. And that brings us to the end of the video. So thank you so much for watching, for spending time with me as I share with you what I've been making in January and February. Please do let me know in the comments below what you have been up to in January and February, what has been on your needles, hooks, looms, spinning wheels, spindles. I love to be inspired by all of the things that you have been making. If you finished any of this year's 12 cast on projects, yeah, do let me know. Yeah, just let's chat all things yarn and fibre. I do love to hear from you, and I do try to respond to all of the comments. It might take me a couple of weeks, but I read them all, and yeah, I love to hear from you. I will be back again soon with some more making content, so I hope you will join me for the next video. I'm not sure what that's going to be yet. I did promise a roundup of my 2022 12 cast on projects. That is still in the works. I'm gathering everything up. It's been a little bit of a hectic start to March here, so I'm not as organised as I'd hoped to be. But hopefully that video will get recorded soon. I haven't forgotten if you're thinking about that and wanting it and wondering what's happened. That may be the next video here on the channel. I've also got a couple of 12 cast on makings vlogs that are almost ready to go, so maybe it'll be one of those. I don't really know. Your guess is as good as mine. I guess we'll find out together, but hopefully soon there will be some more making content coming up here on the channel. So I hope you will join me for the next video. But until we do get to spend time together again, I hope you get to do some of the things that you enjoy. Great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now. Bye.